I'm Mick Fury. Welcome to the Front Porch of America project. Hop in.
We're just gonna do one further. That's it.
I bet you're wondering if America is coming apart at the seams. Yeah, I was too.
I'm a chauvinist, therefore.
So I decided I might try to find out. I had a crazy idea to grab a couple friends, hop in a pickup truck, and set out across America to find the truth.
All right, guys.
What follows is the tales and misadventures of three guys crammed in a pickup truck, tearing up the highways from coast to coast. Our mission is to drive 8,500 miles in 14 days on a shoestring budget and a couple of tacos. You might want to buckle up.
Hi, I'm Mick Fury. You probably know me from my tremendous fame as the spokesman for Purple Power. More on that later. Right now I want to tell you about a really fascinating project I've gotten to be a part of. Let me set the scene. East Nashville, home of the greatest songwriters and weirdest hipsters on the planet. We're sitting on my friend Sean Patrick McGraw's front porch, philosophizing about the world, trying to write a tune, and unfortunately scrolling through social media to see the latest outrage of the day. We're talking about political topics, and we're watching all the unique folks in his neighborhood walk past his house, and it kind of hit us. We were sitting on the front porch of America, watching our country go by. From that spark came a song, and from that song came a documentary. That film followed myself and my videographer Terry Little on a poorly planned, over-caffeinated, way too stressful quest across America, 9,000 miles to try to find out what the heck's going on out there. From Denver to New York to LA to Nashville, we sat on people's front porches, we had a whiskey, we had a coffee, we had a beer with them, and we heard what they feel about America. We didn't have any money, we had no budget, but we had the belief that music could change the world. Now I know what you're thinking. You're just a dumb musician, why do I care about your opinions? Shut up and sing. Fair point. But I do believe in something. I believe in this world that feels out of our hands these days, that corporations control everything, that the individual still can make a difference. Music opens a unique window into our soul, from Dylan to Springsteen to Gaga, and really can change the world. Don't take my word for it. Pull up a seat, grab a cocktail, and take a look.
One further. That's great for the outtakes, so bring us to the outtakes.
I think America's bitch slapping me right now.
On the first part of our journey, I wanted to investigate this divide I keep hearing about with people being so liberal or left-leaning or conservative and right-leaning. Pete grew up in the greater Washington, D.C. area, so he's witnessed American politics firsthand. Pete creates news stories for folks who English is not their first language, and also is a very talented comedian. You're in D.C., which I guess should be considered a fairly liberal city. Like, what do you see on social media? What does your feed look like?
Just the East Coast in general is kind of a liberal bubble. Even the Republicans or right-leaning people here are still fairly left.
Here's a full disclosure and a disclaimer. I live in Los Angeles and work in the entertainment industry. Literally 100% of the people I work with are liberal.
I think it might be a money thing. I think on the right you have things like dark money networks. You have these Koch brother networks. These guys are writing policy and handing them out to legislators and being like, just pass this. I think there's just more money on that side. There's more people who want to protect their money. They want the tax cuts.
I'm not saying either side's innocent or guilty, but the left's poisoning of the discourse is to brand its opponents as being either evil or lying. If I say something that someone on the left, not everyone, but typically if someone on the left disagrees with me, almost always they do not address the merits of whatever my argument are. Okay. I am all of a sudden a racist, therefore you don't have to listen to me. I'm a bigot, therefore I'm wrong. I'm a chauvinist, therefore.
With conservatives, in arguments that I've had with them, it's almost like talking to someone who's really religious who says, and we've had this conversation, this is the book that I go by. I'm not going to deviate from that book.
Finger pointing and laughing when Obama was, the right lost. His I won. One of the first things our president says is essentially Republicans go, fuck yourself.
Okay.
Elections have consequences. Well, yes, they do. And this one did too, but you don't want these consequences. Now you get angry.
The frustration that started around 9 years ago and it swung one way. There was frustration on one end. That has been appeased as of 1 year ago. And I feel like it's too soon for the mending to happen.
The deer would not be swift without the wolf. Okay. I think that it helps all political discourse. It will help the right, and I'm nobody's Republican. I think the Republican Party would be better with a stronger Democratic Party, a less demagogical, a less angry, a less, just petulant, spiteful Democratic Party.
You don't want to hate the other side, and it wasn't that long ago that the other side wasn't evil.
There are a whole lot of great principles on the left. There's a whole lot of well-intentioned people on the left that care about people and want things to be better.
It's going to keep going back and forth until there's enough frustration that we need to unify, or kind of sadly, in the way the world is going, something occurs that brings us together and makes us realize how petty this really is.
When I'm on the road, my truck windshield gets covered in bugs. I turn to Purple Power. It's got the power of purple, so you know it takes that bug goo right off your windshield.
So powerful. So purpleful.
It's purple, so you know it's good.
So purple.
So in the future, for your windshield needs, Purple Power's the way to go.
Sitting down and talking to conservatives and liberals in all of my travels, people from both sides have always shown me kindness and compassion and love. One musician relayed a story to me about how he played a bunch of gigs and saved a bunch of money, only to lose it all when the housing market crashed. I hate hearing stories of everyday people hurt that way.
Go right ahead and judge me by what I do for work. I might act like I give a damn about who the hell I hurt. More is always better. More is what I need. That's me. Generation greed. You love me, you hate me. I am what you made me. I'm a man of my time. I'm better, I'm smarter. If you worked a little harder, you could live a life like mine. That's what I'd have you believe. Generation green.
In the next part of our adventure, we turn through New York City to find out how living in a big city or a small town affects the way you see the world.
Steve lives in New York City in Spanish Harlem. He's worked at a New York City restaurant and now does social science research for the Russell Sage Foundation. His opinion is always very interesting to me because his job is to research social issues.
I grew up upstate, and I grew up in the outside the Adirondacks. My parents live in central New York, Syracuse area
Same
now.
hometown.
Right. I went to Buffalo for school, and now I live in the city. I have New York State pretty well covered. More counties in New York went for Trump than went for Hillary.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a more urban-rural divide.
I lived in New York for 10 years. And for as cosmopolitan and sophisticated and whatever else you want to call it, it is an echo chamber. It's the liberal orthodoxy there is stronger than almost anywhere else.
The middle part of the country, or like the South and things like that, people really value like the earnest, hardworking American. That's a big part of the American identity.
I have family upstate New York who have never been in New York City. I have aunts who are in their 50s who've never been in New York City, and they live in upstate New York.
Okay.
And I have coworkers and friends in New York who have never been outside of the city.
The coasts, it's all about what you do for a living. People here are probably not as interested to hear what somebody in Montana or Alabama has to say about North Korean relations.
If I'm going to pretend that I understand what someone in a little city who was like a coal miner who voted for our president, if I can try to understand where they're coming from, I'd be lying to you.
Right.
Because I can't.
Most of the people there surround themselves with people that think what they think and read what they read and watch the plays that they watch and that sort of thing. It's almost like folks that don't think and believe those things are barbarians.
People in places outside of major cities are much nicer, much friendlier. They do have their own misconceptions about like what city life is like and what happens in places with lots of people, lots of different types of people.
You have people who grow up in the city who don't need to get a driver's license.
Right.
I have a friend who just moved to Colorado from the city, and he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna have to learn how to drive." He's 30.
Right.
And like, no, but like this is such a rite of passage in so much of the country is you turn 16, you get your driver's license.
Sure.
That is a cultural thing that we do.
I had a buddy who went home to Indiana recently, and his friend was introducing him as the liberal from California. And everybody in the bar was going off on him. All you guys do is complain and cry. And he goes, honestly, you're coming off as really angry to me.
People are going to have stereotypes. They're going to start from a biased position. It's their willingness and ability to adapt that to the actual facts on the ground.
You can't tell me that somebody who lives on a like sheep farm in like Montana in the middle of nowhere is going to have the same experience as a 16-year-old black kid from Harlem.
But here's the thing is that a lot of people from those small towns move here. You lived here. And you're from a small town. And you lived here.
When I'm on Loch Ness, I turn to an old favorite, Monster's Choice. It's the favorite dram of the cryptozoological animals. Tastes like mystery. Monster's Choice, strong enough for Nessie, good enough for me.
We now leave the big cities to turn to rural America to talk about everyone's favorite topic, President Trump.
JP is one of the most well-informed and interesting people I know. He's been a Fulbright scholar in economics, played cricket for the Lesotho national team, been a firefighter in my hometown, and currently practices law.
You know, people don't want to be called stupid or ignorant or deplorable, and there's going to be a reaction.
You know, the phrase "make America great again." Realistically, for a lot of people, the past, America in the past was not a great place.
Sure. Civil rights movement.
Yeah, well, I mean, this country is built on the backs of slaves and dead Indians.
Right.
So, you know, if we try to act like that never happened, you know, we're never going to improve upon even like the small issues.
What political background did he even come from? None.
None, really, yeah.
None. He's an actor. He's The Apprentice.
Right.
And he's got money to back him. That's it.
To me, with Hillary, for instance, that was the disconnect. She never connected to the average person. You know what I'm saying?
She ran a machine.
Right.
Where Trump ran a movement. Trump had a movement. Trump was able to speak to people in a certain language. But, and this is just me talking here, a full disclaimer, Trump is a billionaire businessman who ran on the common, everyday platform of every man.
If you're not willing to have a reasonable discussion with someone who's trying to be reasonable, then you're going to move those people to where we are.
You know, you see that every day on the news about the political shit with Trump and how Obama was an asshole and then Trump's the asshole. You're like, what the fuck? Would you shut up?
Right now, America is embarrassing themselves nationally. Like, internationally, America is kind of embarrassing. There are tweets from the person in charge. There are, you know, depositions on people that should be like things that are being seen by the whole world and making the divide more obvious.
I'm certainly not a fan of all of his outbursts and all the shit that he says and all that sort of thing, but I really do like the fact that he's telling the media that think they're smarter than all of us and know how all of it. I mean, I can go in right now and we can Google and come up with 100 quotes from journalists, you know, pretty face news readers that have said it's my job to tell people what to think. Not my job to inform people.
Sure.
But it's my job to tell people what to think. And so I'm very pro putting them in their place. Okay. You know, or taking them down a peg.
To me, Trump's more elitist than anyone because, I mean, he lives in a golden palace in New York City. Right. And I think we're now seeing that. To me, Trump has zero empathy, always been the problem.
when Donald Trump mocked a reporter, that really happened. I don't think as much as I've seen people try and explain that away or try and stand logic on my head or tell me I didn't see what I saw. They're telling me that the media had somehow staged that. No, it really happened. And I found that incredibly offensive.
You had people like Mitt Romney and these kind of guys that are principled men. They had success in business, some success in government, and they were pilloried and insulted and just nagged at by the left, the media, especially the left media, and they took it.
Right.
You know, because that's sort of the right gentlemanly sort of thing. Okay, and this is the game that Trump didn't. You know, Trump just held a mirror up to them and said, you know, go fuck yourself.
Do you guys like him or no? Are you Trump?
Some of Trump's stuff I do, some I don't.
I really don't pay attention to it.
At all? Really?
I really don't.
Some of Trump's stuff is good. A lot of what people don't like about him because he's so vocal.
Right.
If he want to tell you to go fuck yourself, he's going to say, go fuck you. I don't care who you are. I'm the president. You kiss my ass.
Weird, 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 weird. That's weird.
Welcome to another episode of Getting Weird. Today, how to be your own unsuccessful dentist. Now, if you're like me, you probably only floss about once a year when something in your mouth hurts or you notice a couple of loose teeth. So what you're going to want to do is get yourself one of these to scrape the absolute shit out of your teeth with. Okay, once your mouth is good and bloody, fire up this machine that you have no qualifications whatsoever to use. Crank her up to 10. And then, what do we... Whoa, shit. Okay, now we take hold of the bamboo toothbrush, saving the planet with every stroke. We're going to fire it up with a little of this activated charcoal. Any good veterinarian will tell you, first thing you give an animal when it's poisoned. Or put on your teeth. Remember that horrible, tangy, stingy feeling from your childhood? Well, we're bringing it back. In mouthwash form. Okay, now for some homemade toothpaste for those of us paranoid about everything. Okay, now we polish her all off with a strong dose of pseudoscience here. Some oil pulling. There you have it. That's the fastest way to lose a tooth is mouth.
At this point in our journey, we have not slept. I'm about 19 espressos in and I've had tacos for every meal. That puts me in the perfect mindset to drive to Detroit to talk to an emergency room doctor about race relations in America. We then get to sit down with an American Indian chief elder to speak about Standing Rock and why that was so important. Derek is an emergency room doctor at Detroit Receiving. He was raised by a black mother and a white father in a predominantly white community, which gives him a fairly unique outlook on race.
There's some things of concern going on in the government. Things I'm like, well, of course you would say that because you are a black man. Because Obama existed, that all black people are going to be on the liberal side, can't be changed, and they would never understand what it's like to be a conservative white American. It was never a question of, I need you to understand in order to help. It's just you have to be willing to care, willing to listen.
The people live in their impoverished family, like in the black neighborhoods. They see these little black kids all getting in big trouble. What do they know? What's their environment they grow up in?
Right.
They see, you know, the prostitution, the drug dealers, and whatever, gangs. They don't know anything different, so how the hell are they going to be a good citizen if they don't have anything to learn from?
My one neighbor right next door, Jesus, speaks probably 5 words of English. I mean, he doesn't speak the language. He's the nicest guy in the world. My fence was starting to crumble on the other side, and he called my wife over and said, he was basically telling her, I don't know how to tell you this, you know, I know English, but I hope you don't mind that I fixed your fence for you.
Those frustrations in America today exist from underlying situations that have existed for a long time. No matter where I come from, I'm always going to be a black man in America.
We're all Americans, in my opinion. Some people say you're the real Americans, and then the other people. It's like, what constitutes a real American? My mom's mother's family goes way, way back, and I don't think that makes me any more American than someone who shows up here tomorrow.
There's no way you would understand me because you're a black man. Well, surprise to you, I grew up in a white community with a white father. I actually do understand maybe more of the conversation than you would expect.
We saw your sign out front. What's the story with that?
is in my America, you know, we respect people with disabilities, Black Lives Matter, nobody is illegal, you know, love is love.
I could have been on that side of course, you know, Republicans, people in that like sect or kind of thought process could never relate to my situation. And I realize how wrong I can be in that situation because of the assumptions people can make about me.
Weird, 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 weird. That's weird.
Today I'm going to teach you the recipe for a smoothie guaranteed to make you live to age 187. First thing we're going to add is kefir. This is like a sour, semi-poisonous milk product. Alright, now for some honey from only virgin honeybees. You might not know this, but honeybees constantly fornicating. Disgusting. Okay, now for some various herbs and powders. This is pretty much the mix they used to heal Frodo when he got stabbed in Lord of the Rings. Okay, and now for the taste test. Oh, it's so good. Art is a Dakota Indian tribe elder. As someone in the community who was at Standing Rock, he has some very interesting insights.
The pipeline actually goes down to the north of that, which would be Bismarck in that area.
Okay.
So when that area was included, the township of Bismarck came up and said, you know, they didn't want that coming in that area.
Sure.
So they rerouted it down into the native land, which is, in this case, is the Fort Laramie Treaty. Everyone at Standing Rock had the same concern, environmental.
Right.
You know, and the native people look at it differently. You're going to pray for the water, yeah. So we know all the damages that can be done and have been done. We also know that, you know, the corporations that are out there to build these, they really don't care about us or the environment, yeah. A protest can last 7 days to 73 days, and you know, it ends. You know, it ends, and that's the end of it. Like when you get up to Standing Rock, there's nothing left there. I mean, you're lucky to find a trash bag. And one time it was just vibrant. You know, it was a beautiful feeling. Any person that's been there will know. You know, there's some beautiful things there. They were working. Yeah, they were working. And I think Standing Rock made a dent, made it a good dent, but you know, it still goes on. Regardless, it still goes on quietly. Yeah.
Getting a chance to speak with Art Owen, an American Indian elder, about the plight of the American Indian and about Standing Rock was very eye-opening. Being present at the Sitting Bull Monument on the Standing Rock Foundation was extremely moving.
Stops by to have a beer with me. We talk, we drink, we both agree to live and let be. But powerful people with names you've never heard take everything from us that has any worth. They deal, they steal, they feel they own the water and the dirt. Got much of a plan. I think it's time that we stay.
I've been very fortunate to live in some of the major regions of this country, from growing up in the Northeast to moving out west to now living down in Nashville in the South. Today we sit down with folks to ask them how the region they grew up in affects the way they see the world.
This country's in a crazy place. Sometimes we feel so divided. Lucky there's just one face that will keep us united. Fury, Mick Fury, talking on your front porch. Fury, Mick Fury, he's let loose on America, driving for 30 days, let loose on America. Just give him some gas money, let loose on America. Don't let him into your house. He is Mick Fury.
John is from outside of Boston and has lived in Los Angeles for 20 years. He's a songwriter and guitar player, as well as a very successful commercial actor.
Our contribution is film and television and entertainment. I live in a city where people come here to make their dreams come true. Most of them, it's a nightmare, like myself. To me, this city's always been a city that is uplifting and always has building going on, and there's something, people are reinventing themselves.
Detroit is a black city,
right?
But at the same time, it's a city that's gone through so much that presence that once was has now kind of changed and shifted. Much more liberal, kind of how you would see like a city like Chicago, where you can have both sides, but the liberal does still have kind of a stronger impact. Detroit would have been similar, but now these days I feel like it's kind of more closer on the conservative side.
This is East Harlem. It's
Okay.
also known as El Barrio or Spanish Harlem. It's a mix. There's people who've lived there their whole lives. There's housing projects. You can see them in the background over here. Like these are all housing projects, so those are subsidized housing.
Okay.
But then the rest of the people, it's probably young professionals.
It was one of those things where you talk about there was an unrest that existed. I think this was one of the places where it was more outspoken because Detroit got hit the hardest. Even though things are changing in other places, nothing's happening in Detroit.
My two girlfriends and I were just looking for the coolest place in America to live.
Okay.
We didn't have a destination spot. Most things in the West are pretty, liberal, pretty laid back.
That's all I've wanted. I've wanted to be around people that are trying to create something. So you can talk about all you want, then you take out your iPhone that was, developed in San Francisco, and then you watch your Netflix show that might have come from Los Angeles.
In the rural areas of Denver, I mean, there's a huge shortage of healthcare, like health clinics and hospitals and stuff like that, as well as food. So when you're talking to someone who lives out in the rural areas and you're saying take personal responsibility, it's to a point that's possible, but then you get to a point where it's not.
The Make America Great Again thing that people would laugh at in other parts, I saw hats here.
I think we are fortunate. We live in Denver where there's a lot of open space and safe places to exercise, and we have nice weather. It's a little bit easier to tell somebody to go out and exercise here than it is in like the inner city of Chicago.
What's funny is that when people come to LA, they go, oh, they're just like normal, regular people. LA gets a bad rap. LA is one of the few cities where people that don't live here tell me what it's like.
Right.
You know what I mean? They tell me what it's like. I've lived here for almost 20 years, and you're telling me what this city's like.
This place is different than the Detroit that I thought I knew before I moved here.
California is the leader of so many things. But I do feel there's an absolute disconnect. And I feel like Los Angeles is probably the center of it. Yes. But I feel like if people just came here and saw all these little small businesses that are popping up and all these cool ideas.
Right, like the Verb that we went to.
That place right there, it was just like, it's just regular people that are trying to have, just trying to make a good cup of coffee.
hanging at the Lombard Street. There's 7 damn turns. Who the hell designed this street, man? The architect, he didn't learn. It's just a too-many turns. There's just a too-many turns.
As we continue on with our travels to the Pacific Northwest, we sit down and chat with folks about the value of debating a topic with someone who disagrees with you. One topic of debate in our country right now is the legalization of marijuana, so we of course went to the source, a pot farm.
We are here at a pot farm. This is the marijuana here behind me, the devil grass. It gets pretty big. I didn't really know what to expect here, but it gets quite large. Emme went from being a barista in Naples, Florida, to moving to the Pacific Northwest and running a very successful marijuana farm. I wanted to ask her why keeping marijuana legal was so important for her region of the country.
One of the things we're finding is people are having difficulty having political conversations now. And this, like I said, it is kind of a political topic. Do you feel like people can talk about it?
It's definitely something that, at this point, it's been so much on the front and in everyone's face that I feel like there's a lot more ease of just talking about it, and I think it really does make sense to most people to, as far as just keeping it legal.
Most people want to shriek and howl and scream and tell each other they're wrong. I'll make fun of people, but if somebody wants to actually have a discussion about it, I'll discuss it.
There is a intensity, maybe over the past, let's call it 9 years now, that has created that divide to a point where there's more emotion involved that prevents rationality from really stepping into that conversation. Politics, religion, love, man, those are the three things that, as much as you want to rationalize it, if there is enough emotion tied into it, they don't hear you.
Right.
And then you have to sit back and realize that maybe you don't hear them too.
My whole thing is you need to make a sensible argument. You know what I mean? Like yesterday I searched #Russian hoax, right? And I went down all the hashtags, and every single person was, Hillary's emails, Trump's the best. And I'm like, I don't know if that's a case for me.
There's none of this. There's none of sitting on a porch, drinking a smoothie, having a conversation.
I don't think having a productive conversation. I think people get very emotionally involved when they're talking about issues that are divisive, and that unless you have a great relationship where you can overcome that divide and really hear what the other person is saying, I don't think so.
You have to be able to talk about this women's health thing and being like, hey, abortion is maybe
not so black and white.
Right, and that's really hard to do when people take issues like the abortion issue, the gun issue.
And I know from people's Facebook posts in my family that they are very divided, and they don't necessarily share my political views.
Dispute breeds progress. I think you have to be able to debate and argue, figure out what works best for the most people.
If I was going to sit down with my grandparents and have a productive conversation, I don't know if I would be able to keep my emotions in check.
A newly released government report is revealing the dire consequences of climate change. It says climate change has staggering economic and public health consequences. It also says...
I gotta take a shower or something. I can't take this. Regenerative organic agriculture builds rich soils, sequesters carbon, retains and stores water, provides healthy food, mitigates catastrophic climate change on spaceship Earth, repeat 99 prayers, or spend 100 years in meditation, watch and read Kiss the Ground and eating animals, only eat legs and better meat from pasture-raised animals only. 5 freedoms for farm animals is no hunger, no thirst, no discomfort, no pain, injury, disease, freedom to express normal behaviors, no fear or distress, only grass-fed and pasture-raised, suitable shelter, minimal transport distances.
As we finally make the turn east after 6,000 miles of travel so far, We sit down with folks and talk about climate change. Jess is the mother of 3 and has lived all over the world. She was raised in upstate New York, lived in San Diego, Spain, and now Denver. She runs the blog New Mama Wellness, is a health coach, and makes one heck of a smoothie.
What's your big issue for you?
How we eat and how we live our lives, and I feel like conversations around climate change and the food system are important to me because I think it impacts our overall health.
So you guys don't really use any chemicals? You try to do it as organically as possible?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the benefit of that?
Oh, the benefit of that is tomatoes grown biodynamically, organically, and the nutritional value and the quality that they withhold inside themselves versus a tomato that's grown on a big, humongous plantation and only Miracle Grow.
Right.
You know, super, ultra, the worst synthetic pesticides and fertilizers used on it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like basically what are these 2 different tomatoes going to do when you consume them?
If you're always coming from a place of like, what is the higher good? Because I really do believe in the interconnectedness of everything. That's why I care about the environment, because I see that, you know, a tree and me, like we're sharing this environment, sharing this earth.
We've talked about climate change. We've talked about a bunch of stuff online.
Yeah.
And we can come to different conclusions.
Sure.
But we're having a discussion.
Right.
You say, JP, where'd you get this from? Or why do you think this? And I say, well, here. Again, right. I'm not saying this is gospel. I'm not saying, ha-ha, slap, I win, drop mic, and walk off. I'm saying, look, you read it and tell me what you think.
I saw someone this morning who posted an article that was basically a climate change denial.
Right.
And the first thing I did was I Googled the author and found everything and I could, and I realized where this guy was coming from.
Sure.
And I'm like, here's the source.
Right.
Here are a dozen scientists telling you that this guy is a quack.
Sure.
That's where you got your information from, period. It's relevant that he worked in a coal-fired power plant.
Okay.
So, of course, he wants to
protect his own
self-interest, which we all do.
Right.
I also believe that, you know, I have self-interest, that if my self-interest is bad for everyone else, then maybe I re-examine what's important to me.
Everyone in Standing Rock had the same concern, environmental.
Right.
The native people look at it differently, you know. So we know all the damages that can be done and have been done. We also know that, you know, the corporations that are out there to build these, they really don't care about us or the environment. Yeah.
And hopefully people will start to consider the fact that, like, you know, it doesn't really matter where you're from. We only have one planet right now.
Right. Give Elon Musk a chance. Things could change.
We have to look at the corporations. Either it's manifest destiny, eminent domain, and they're just running the country over. They're going to take whatever they want. Yeah.
We're all human beings, you know, and I think from my perspective, it's like, hey, we can all have our own thoughts about stuff, but I'm looking at it for the next generation. Like, whatever happens, I just want it to be a good place for him to live and for his kids and his kids.
Right.
So however we can get to a conversation that has that at the heart of it, I'm open to talking about whatever needs to happen.
Weird, 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 weird. That's weird.
Okay, today I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about composting. Yeah!
Oh, that's disgusting.
As our adventure draws to the close, we've heard about all the troubles facing America. These folks now offer some solutions. Beyond being a world-class songwriter and artist, Sean has traveled the globe and seen a little bit of everything. I wanted to talk to him about why it was important for him and I to tackle a song like The Front Porch of America, and what artists and everyday people can do to help heal the divide.
I did a benefit for fallen heroes, and can you play that patriotic song you have? I'm like,
okay, so they considered it a patriotic song.
And I had to ask, I said, what patriot, front porch of America? And I'm like, I don't know, patriotic is the right word.
Sure.
Because it is, you know, we have a line in the song that says, you know, sometimes I'm saddened by the sorry things I've seen.
Right.
And I'm not it's not specifically, my way of thinking, it wasn't specifically critical of anybody. I was just saying, I wish we could be nicer and get along better.
Sure.
But to me, it doesn't mean you have to think what I think for that to happen. I hope that people can remember when they don't agree is that I think we all basically want the same things.
Right.
I think as you go out and you start talking to people, they may have different ideas about how we ought to get there.
And I feel like on a bigger scale, this is just the way I feel, I want to see all this stuff happen in America where you're talking about, you know, make everybody go up. But really on a bigger scale, I want that for humanity, right?
Exactly.
I mean, we're lucky to be born in this country, but there's 7 billion people that weren't. How can we bring it all together? Is there a way we can fix it? Do we not need to fix it? What can we change?
What always solves everything is getting to know the other people. There's some evidence that if you're exposed to diversity when you're young, suddenly you're less racist when you're older. And stuff like that. So and that diversity doesn't have to be a racial thing. It can be an income diversity. It can be like sexuality diversity. We just need to talk to each other more, and that's really hard to do.
Okay.
Because people are so afraid of talking to the other person because of the otherness.
I lived in the Netherlands for a while, and I met a lot of young Dutch people. And for not having lived through the Second World War, they still carried a whole lot of bitterness about what Germany did to the Dutch. One of my Dutch buddies said it the best. He says, every German's an asshole, except the ones I know.
We need to fix this. We need to bring it together. The how is the difficult part.
I think the entertainment industry does have a lot of empathy. I need to have empathy as a person if I'm going to act. I have to try to understand what other people feel like.
As much as I said, the conservatives are difficult, I don't think that there's much more laxity on the other side either. So let's say that right now is the bad times. 60s, bad times. Great Depression, bad times. It's one of these things where America has ebb and flows, and when America hits its lowest, it's only to get us to come back to strong.
I find with the people that I hang with that people do want to talk about this stuff, but they also want to talk about solutions. You know, I mean, the people I hang out with are young parents, and we care about the future of our little ones. I'm not opposed to hearing other sides, and often when I do, I think that I try to keep an open mind. I'm a health coach. I'm trained in facilitating, so I feel like I'm able to listen more.
Nobody's benefiting from this. Both sides are hurting the whole. I think that more hurt has to happen before the healing can begin.
I grew up in a really good household. My parents are still married. I got to go to college. So it's really tough for me to say anything. So for me to be like, you got to get your shit together over in fucking some small town, oh my God. Now I come off as like the most liberal, elitist person ever.
What do you wish for someone you've never met that lives in America? Like, what do you hope happens for them?
Hope they can have a decent life where they don't have to scrimp and scrounge and do whatever, steal, do whatever to try to survive.
I think you have to be empathetic to know what's best for humankind. And thinking about what's best for your country is not the most empathetic thing to do.
I do kind of make it kind of my situation, kind of sit down and listen, and kind of hear on a side that I may not agree with, just to kind of try and understand a reasoning or a thinking to see if there is a conversation to be had.
Right.
What I will gather from those conversations is that decisions, beliefs have been made, and just how I know how right I am in my beliefs, they know how right they are in their beliefs, and it is a difficult coming to middle ground conversation. Preaching is not going to get you where you need to be. You can't have a conversation if you know that you're right. You have to be willing to understand that something had to happen for this to occur, and if you don't listen, you can't expect them to.
Coming at it with empathy and not trying to prove a point. People want to have these deep conversations.
Right.
I don't necessarily think people always want to talk about the political landscape. I think it's like, let's go deeper than that.
Okay.
Because that's where it's like, you can really see that there is a connection and that it's more than just the petty stuff.
Yeah, it's like an empathy thing. You need to be able to talk to the other person and not think that they're evil.
You got to dial down the anger. I think if people are more willing to sit down and chat, that's great.
And a lot of it is just what I can do as an artist, and just, you know, and be humbled and a little selfish. What can I do as an artist to make myself happy? And what can I do to try to educate people on what's happening?
If you come at a conversation with the intent to understand and have it be productive, I think that changes the landscape. If you're just talking to like fill up space and not really want to come to an agreement or a solution, then it obviously won't.
I wouldn't want anyone to make the mistake, though, to think that you or I think that we have an answer, because I certainly don't think I have one.
Definitely not. That's what this whole thing's about.
But I'm going to keep on asking the question, and to me, writing songs, I mean, it is like we're philosophizing, we're thinking about it, and just ask a question sometimes leads to more questions.
To me, my whole thing is like, every day I try to step away from what is happening. I put the phone away, I put everything away, I put the music away, and I just try to be present.
Still, surprisingly, and that's one of those things where it gets difficult, if you can't tell if your own bias is playing a part there, where I still feel like I'm trying to be open, but I still don't see a difference.
Right.
So it kind of raises that conversation of, is it just a bias that I can't put away, an unconscious bias that...
So in a way, their bias causes you to self-reflect.
Yes. In order for them to put their bias aside, I have to put mine aside. Is mine truly aside?
Some columnist said, you know, if you start to believe the media narrative of there being an irreparable division in this country, go talk to your neighbors.
Right.
You know, it's not bad. It's really not that bad, but that's what sells.
Those hot button issues are really hard to talk about, but I think if... I don't know. It's almost like
maybe you have a glass of whiskey on a rooftop in New York City.
Everyone should have a beer with each other.
So here we are back in Nashville, 9,000 miles down, 4 billion espressos drank, and very, very little sleep had. Such is the budget of a musician. What have we learned along the way? Is it empathy? Could it be that simple? Listen, there's nobody less qualified than me to try to do journalism or tell you what to think or even do this project, but I have learned a few things along the way. That if you don't listen, you can't expect them to. That it's okay to not have all the answers as long as we keep asking the questions. The choices we make today will have a big impact on our future politics and the future of our planet. So the next time you disagree with somebody, sit down and chat with them, or better yet, have them over to your front porch for a whiskey or a coffee. Cheers, y'all.
Man, one theme that kept coming up is if we could all just be a little more kind, a little more empathetic to each other, we might not be in the position we're in. We might be able to fix this thing. So, anyways, this is a song called "The Front Porch of America."
Looking out over the land of the free, my father's long history. Sometimes I'm saddened by sorry things I've seen from the front porch of America. My friends and neighbors can't get along, but what makes us different is what makes us strong. Might be in different keys, but we're singing the same song from the front porch of America. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. Looking back on all that we've been through, we've been that shining light. Most times we get it right. You know I still believe in you. Yes, I do.
Mick, it is your Uncle Limber. Listen up.
My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. Looking back on all that we've been through, we've been that shining light. Most times we get it right. You know I still believe in you. The huddled masses, the tired and the poor. For 500 years we have sailed to these shores with just the clothes on our backs and the dream of something more. From the front porch of America, from the front porch of America.
Front Porch of America Project.
Front Porch of America Project.
The Front Porch of America Project.
Front Porch of America
Hey, God,
Project.
it's the Front Porch of America
Front
Project.
Porch of America Project.